Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Friday, May 9, 2025. The FAA says that air traffic controllers lost contact again for a short time with flights going in and out of Newark Airport. President Donald Trump suggests a new tariff level for China as the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer are about to meet Chinese officials for trade talks. White House says the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, was fired for pursuing DEI initiatives and putting inappropriate books in the library. Pope Leo XIV attends his first papal mass and gives part of the homily in English, calling his new job a blessing and a cross. First Lady Melania Trump speaks to military mothers ahead of Mother's Day. And retired Supreme Court Justice David Souter has died at the age of 85. A CBS News article describes him as a steady member of the High Court's liberal wing during his tenure, despite being appointed by a Republican president. Air traffic controllers handling flights approaching and departing Newark Liberty International Airport experienced another outage early Friday morning, begins a CNN article. It goes on, the blackout included losing radar for about 90 seconds at 3:55 a.m. local time, the Federal Aviation Administration said in a statement. The outage is the latest in a series of troubling technical problems that have impacted the air traffic control system in the United States. Thursday, the Department of Transportation announced an overhaul of the nation's air traffic control system. That was the CNN article. White House Press Secretary Carla Levitt was questioned about it today during her news conference.
Is there any comment from the White House on the air traffic control issues in Newark?
I'm glad you asked about the FAA. There was a glitch in the system this morning, especially at Newark Airport. As you all know, I spoke to the Department of Transportation. That glitch was caused by the same telecoms and software issues that were raised last week. Everything went back online after the brief outage, and there was no operational impact. DOT and the FAA are working to address this technical issue tonight to prevent further outages, as well as install new fiber from Newark Airport to Philadelphia. And the goal is to have the totality of this work done by the end of the summer. I want to add that this outage at Newark Airport speaks to why the Secretary of Transportation yesterday made a massive announcement in investing in our aviation safety and our telecom system. There's a 4-part infrastructure plan that was released by the Secretary of Transportation yesterday to improve communication, surveillance, automation, and their facilities. They want to replace the antiquated telecom systems with new fiber, wireless, and satellite technologies, replace more than 600 radars, which have gone way past their life cycle, and address runway safety. They want to build 6 new air traffic control centers for the first time since the 1960s and replace towers as well. They want to implement new modern hardware and software for all traffic facilities to create a common platform system throughout the towers. These are much needed changes. This is a very bold plan by the Department of Transportation. I think it's unfortunate that the previous administration sat in their hands and did nothing, but how grateful we are that we have a Department of Transportation and a secretary and a president who's willing to take bold action and change.
The White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt at the news conference today in the White House briefing room. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, posting on X, we just learned that there was another outage with the FAA in Newark this morning. Enough. Trump needs to get it together now and stop risking safety so DOGE can play government. And now to trade from NBC News. President Donald Trump said this morning that decreasing tariffs on China from 145% to 80% seems right in a post to Truth Social, adding that any reduction would be up to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer are holding trade talks with Chinese officials tomorrow in Switzerland. That was reporting from NBC News. President Trump answered reporters' questions about this today in the White House Oval Office.
What parameters have you given Scott Bessent on negotiating with China this weekend?
We have to make a great deal for America.
Are you going to be disappointed if he comes back without a deal?
No, not at all, because we already made a great deal. We're not doing business with China right now. You know, we lost $1 trillion last year with China, $1 trillion. So if you're not going to do business with them, you're not going to lose $1 trillion. But we lost. I want China to do great. You know, I'm very friendly with President Xi. I have great respect for him and for China, but we can't continue to allow them to do what they did. When I was president, they paid hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs and taxes. And then Biden screwed it all up. What he did to this country between the border and between all of the other problems, the wars, everything, what he did to this country should never be forgotten. But one of the things he did is the trade was so bad and so imbalanced. So I think we're going to come back with a fair deal for both China and us.
Have you given Bessent a number of how low you're willing to go?
Yeah, I am.
What's the number?
Share that number?
No. 80%? But I put out a number today, 80%, so we'll see how that all works out.
President Donald Trump taking reporters' questions in the White House Oval Office. He was also asked about what other trade deals are in the works and what a baseline tariff might be, even as the deals are negotiated, and about a post this morning that he would be willing to accept a tiny tax increase on the rich in order to help the lower and middle-class workers.
Caroline said today that the 10% baseline tariff on all countries is here to stay, even after the deals are done. Does that mean that countries offering zero tariffs won't get reciprocity?
You are going to always have a baseline. I mean, there could be an exception at some point. We'll see. You know, somebody does something exceptional for us. That's always possible. But basically, you have a baseline of a minimum of 10%. And some of them will be much higher, 40%, 50%, 60%, as they've been doing to us over the years. We had a wonderful deal yesterday. We have 4 or 5 other deals coming immediately. We have many deals coming down the line, and ultimately we're just signing the rest of them in. But we always have a baseline of 10%.
And then specifically on the possibility of an increase in taxes on wealthier Americans, what do you say to conservative Republicans who argue that this is an increase on small business owners?
Well, what we're doing is we're actually, if we ever did that, it would only be, and from what I hear, people would love to do it, rich people. I would love to do it, frankly, but what we'll do is that, they'll go around saying, oh, this is so terrible. What you do it is you're giving up something up top in order to make people in the middle income and the lower income brackets save more. So it's really a redistribution. And I'm willing to do it if they want. I would love to be able to give people in a lower bracket a big break by giving up some of what I have. But I'll tell you, a lot of people say don't do it because of the fact that you have the Bush statement about read my lips. But he lost because of Ross Perot. He didn't lose because of that statement.
And then on the SALT.
But I don't think they're going to be doing it. But I actually think it's good politics to do it where richer people give up. And it's a very small, it's like a point. But they give it up to benefit people on a lower income.
President Donald Trump taking reporters' questions in the White House Oval Office. Story from Reuters, the first wave of Federal Reserve officials to weigh in after this week's policy meeting reiterated on Friday that the current economic uncertainty calls for monetary policy patience as Trump administration trade policy boosts risks to the outlook. When it comes to the current state of Fed policy, we're in a good place, New York Fed President John Williams said in an interview with Bloomberg Television. Fed Governor Adriana Kugler, who spoke in a separate Bloomberg television interview, said the healthy economy gives us time to make more progress lowering inflation pressures before needing to consider a next step. U.S. Central Bank held its benchmark interest rate steady in the 4.25% to 4.5% range on Wednesday and flagged the rising economic uncertainty. That was from Reuters. Here's part of the John Williams interview on Bloomberg.
Given the uncertainty on tariffs and trade, how difficult is it to even have a projection for inflation in the future?
Well, right now, there's a lot of uncertainty about what's happening with trade policy or other policies. So for me, what's important is think through a lot of different scenarios. Right now, the economy's in a really good place in the U.S. Unemployment's in 4.2%. Inflation's 2.3%. The other indicators show we're still a pretty solid economy. So right now, we have time. We're in a good place now. Policy's in a good place. Let's collect more data and information about what's happening with trade policy, what's its likely effects on the economy, and then once we have that more information, we can kind of think of, what's that mean for the achievement of our goals in our policy?
I know you don't like when people say, look, the Fed seems unwilling, actually, because of inflation, to act preemptively to bolster the labor market. So how would you explain, this contrasting in the future? Well,
right now, again, the labor market has proven to be resilient. It's strong, even through the data through April. So what we want to do is really get an idea of what the tariffs are going to be, other policy decisions are, run these through different scenarios, through our models and our analysis, listen to what business and other leaders are telling us, what they're actually doing in response to these policies, and then come to a view of what's happening to employment, inflation, and importantly, the risks to that outlook. So, once we have that better information, we can, assess the situation and make decisions. So it's about getting the information so we understand the direction of travel for the economy and make the best decision possible. But right now, things are still quite in a good place.
John Williams, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, interviewed on Bloomberg Television. Wall Street today, the Dow down 119, S&P down 4, NASDAQ up a fraction. Another Reuters article, the U.S. Postal Service board on Friday said it named David Steiner, a FedEx board member and former CEO of Waste Management, as a new Postmaster General after the White House pressured the prior leader to resign in March. Postal unions have raised sharp concerns about Steiner's selection to succeed Postmaster General Louis DeJoy because he sits on the board of a competitor to the Postal Service. Postal Service reported a wider net loss of $3.3 billion for the 3 months ending March 31st as it continues to hike stamp prices and seek ways to cut costs. That was from Reuters. Also from Reuters, top executives at American AI giants OpenAI, Microsoft, and Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, said at a U.S. Senate hearing on Thursday that while the U.S. is ahead in the artificial intelligence race, Washington needs to boost infrastructure and champion AI chip exports to stay ahead in Beijing. U.S. Senate Commerce Committee, chaired by Republican Senator Ted Cruz, is looking to cut regulatory barriers to U.S. artificial intelligence after China's DeepSeek shocked the world with a high-quality, affordable AI model last year, and as Huawei, long in Washington's crosshairs, unveiled an advanced AI chip. Reporting from Reuters, here's part of that hearing, Senator Cruz asking each of the witnesses about AI competition between the U.S. and China.
In the race for AI, who's winning, America or China? If the answer is America, how close is China to us? And what do we do to make sure the answer remains America will win? Mr. Altman, we'll start with you.
It is our belief that the American models, including some models from our company, OpenAI, and Google and others, are the best models in the world. It's very hard to say how far ahead we are, but I would say not a huge amount of time. And I think to continue that leadership position and the influence that comes with that, and all of the incredible benefits of the world using American technology, products, and services, the things that my colleagues have spoken about here, the need to win in infrastructure, sensible regulation that does not slow us down, this sort of spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship that I think is a uniquely American thing in the world. None of this is rocket science. We just need to keep doing the things that have worked for so long and not make a silly mistake.
Dr. Su?
I'll answer in the realm of chips. I would say America is ahead in chips today. We have the best AI accelerators in the world. I think China, although they have restrictions given their ability to use advanced technologies, the one thing that's very important for us all to remember is there are multiple ways to do things. You know, having the best chips is great, but even if you don't have the best chips, you can get a lot done. So I think this conversation about how far behind China is, they are certainly catching up because there are many ways to do things. I think relative to what we can do, I will continue to say, really ensure that our spirit of innovation is allowed to work. And that is having very supportive government policies to do that, having very consistent policies, and allowing us to do what we do best, which is innovate at every layer of the stack.
Mr. Trader?
So I'll speak to it from the physical infrastructure and software stack to deliver that. America is ahead, but it is the Achilles heel from the perspective of the ability, as I started to Better? Sorry about that. So the ability to build very large solutions to the computing infrastructure component of this is an area that we're going to struggle with from a permitting and building large projects to be able to deliver the power to allow those building artificial intelligence to continue to move as fast as they can in the race that we're in.
Mr. Smith?
I think the United States has a lead today in what is a close race and a race that will likely remain close. The number one factor that will define whether the United States or China wins this race is whose technology is most broadly adopted in the rest of the world. This is a global market, and it will be defined as technology markets typically are by network effects. 18% of the people in the world live in China, 4% live in the United States, 78% live somewhere else. The lesson from Huawei and 5G is whoever gets there first will be difficult to supplant. We need to export with the right kinds of controls. We need to win the trust of the rest of the world. We need to have the financial architecture that gets not only to the countries that are industrialized, but the nations, say, across Africa, where typically China and Huawei have done so well.
A portion of Thursday's Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee hearing on AI. The chair is Ted Cruz, Republican from Texas, and testifying Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, Lisa Su, AMD CEO, Michael Intrater, CoreWeave CEO, Brad Smith, Microsoft President and Vice Chair, and you can find the full video at cspan.org. This is Washington Today. Story from the Washington Post. President Donald Trump on Thursday fired Carla Hayden, the Librarian of Congress, the first woman and first African-American to lead the world's largest library. She was informed of the decision in a terse two-sentence email. White House Deputy Director of Presidential Personnel sent the email, seen by the Washington Post. It reads, "Carla, on behalf of President Donald J. Trump, I am writing to inform you that your position as Librarian of Congress is terminated effective immediately. Thank you for your service." Hayden was appointed in 2016 by President Barack Obama, and her renewable 10-year term was set to expire next year. Hayden was also the first librarian by profession to be appointed to the job in decades. And the Washington Post article has, in parentheses here, typically historians and scholars have led the Library of Congress. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked at her news conference about the reasons for the termination.
The President fired the Librarian of Congress. Why did he choose to do that?
We felt she did not fit the needs of the American people. There were quite concerning things that she had done at the Library of Congress in the pursuit of DEI and putting inappropriate books in the library for children, and we don't believe that she was serving the interests of the American taxpayer well, so she has been removed from her position, and the President is well within his rights to do that.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt at her news conference today. The House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, with a statement. Dr. Carla Hayden is an accomplished, principled, and distinguished Librarian of Congress. Her historic tenure has taken the institution to new heights, and I am thankful for her incredible service. Donald Trump's unjust decision to fire Dr. Hayden in an email sent by a random political hack is a disgrace and the latest in his ongoing effort to ban books, whitewash American history, and turn back the clock. The Library of Congress is the people's library. There will be accountability for this unprecedented assault on the American way of life sooner rather than later. That statement from Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader. Carla Hayden testified on Tuesday before the House Administration Committee. These questions came from Congresswoman Terry Sewell, Democrat from Alabama.
Recently, public libraries across the nation have been under attack by extremists who are trying to ban books that do not align with their ideology. We're seeing daily attempts to erase Black history and strip funding from critical entities like the Institute of Museums and library services that help rural and underserved communities access information and tell their stories. Just last year, the American Library Association reported 821 attempts to censor library books and other materials. These egregious efforts to censor information and defund libraries undermines public access to knowledge and essential community programs, and they should serve as a wake-up call for all Americans. As members of Congress, we should be working overtime to protect and expand access to information. That's why I have been so impressed by the work that you've done, Dr. Hayden. You have always made it a priority to ensure that the Library of Congress fulfills its mission to inspire and inform all Americans. I wanted to wanted you to elaborate on how the digital and IT infrastructure project has really helped to expand access to the Library of Congress.
And thank you for your comments, because as the National Library with these unique collections, I often think of what it would have been like in Baltimore, Maryland, where I worked, when there was a disturbance and there were young people in that branch library that I could have pulled up Rosa Parks' in her own hand, what she felt like at the time, and make that connection. So by making these materials available online, we are providing that access for everyone anywhere that
Yes.
they can see the draft of the Declaration of Independence by Thomas Jefferson with footnotes or side notes with B.F. Ben Franklin and J.A. John Adams, that they can see the primary sources. And that's been the Walt Whitman, during the pandemic, we really had educational virtual packets for not only educators, but caregivers who were suddenly educators.
Carla Hayden on Tuesday before the House Administration Committee, questioned by Congresswoman Terry Sewell, Democrat from Alabama. Carla Hayden was terminated as Librarian of Congress Thursday night, reportedly by a 2-sentence email. Story from UPI. President Donald Trump has fired 3 Democrats sitting on the 5-member Consumer Product Safety Commission. Former Chair Alex Hohnsarik and Commissioners Mary Boyle and Richard Trumka Jr. are now all listed on the agency's website under the Past Commissioners section. Trumka confirmed the move in an Instagram post. Last night, I received an email stating that the president wanted to fire me as commissioner of the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Trumka, who was appointed in 2021 to a 7-year term, said in a social media post. Of course, he did not give any reason why. However, it immediately follows me doing 2 things that this administration is against: advancing solutions to protect the American people from harm and stopping the legal firing of scores of public servants who do life-saving work. That was from UPI. New Jersey Globe reports that Newark Mayor Ras Baraka was arrested today outside the Delaney Hall detention facility and remains in federal custody. A major escalation in the battles over the immigration detention facility in Newark. Baraka, who previously tried to enter the facility earlier this week, joined members of Congress Bonnie Watson-Coleman, Rob Menendez, and LaMonica MacGyver, all Democrats, today for another attempt, in their words, to conduct oversight at the facility. According to the 3 Congress members, after the quartet had made it into the facility's parking lot, Baraka was told to leave, and he did. Members of Congress have official oversight powers over such federal facilities and thus were allowed to stay. Immigration officials then followed Baraka to the gates of the facility where a number of protesters had gathered and arrested the mayor, also a current Democratic candidate for governor, after a brief scuffle, the representatives alleged. That was from the New Jersey Globe. Congresswoman MacGyver posted a number of videos today. This was the one as she was heading to the facility.
Hey everyone, it's your Congresswoman LaMonica MacGyver representing New Jersey's 10th Congressional District. I am literally on my way right now to Delaney Hall to conduct an oversight visit here at this detention center. We've been seeing on the news all of the lack of transparency and chaos that has been coming out of this facility. They have, neglected to let city officials in, to let the mayor in. Code enforcement to fire inspectors have been denied access to this building. And as your congressional member, it is my duty to conduct an oversight visit to see what is happening inside this facility. So I'm taking you on the journey with me. Stay tuned.
That was the video the Congresswoman posted as she was heading to the detention facility after she and the other members of Congress were denied entry. This is what she said.
What all of you watch occurred is just how reckless ICE is. It is unacceptable that me as a member of Congress, as a black woman here in this city, was just assaulted by multiple ICE officers while regional directors of ICE watched it happen. Since we toured the whole facility with them, no one offered an apology or said anything to me about what occurred out here. Not only was I assaulted, but Congressman Bonnie Watson was assaulted, and of course Congressman Rob Menendez was roughed up as he was trying to protect us. It makes no sense, and it is highly unacceptable how this administration is trying to restrict Congress from doing their bare duties and the responsibilities that the people have elected us to do.
Congresswoman LaMonica MacGyver, Democrat from New Jersey, outside the detention facility, Delaney Hall in Newark. Again, the mayor of Newark arrested. Interim U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey, Alina Habba, putting out a statement. The mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, committed trespass and ignored multiple warnings from Homeland Security investigations to remove himself from ICE detention center in Newark, New Jersey this afternoon. He has willingly chosen to disregard the law. That will not stand in this state. He has been taken into custody. No one is above the law. Story from the New York Times. The Trump administration is planning to bring the first group of white South Africans it has classified as refugees to the United States on Monday, according to officials briefed on the plans and documents obtained by the New York Times. Though the president halted virtually all other refugee admissions shortly after he took office in January, his administration hastily put together a program to allow in white South Africans who he claims have been the victims of racial persecution in their home country. That was from the New York Times. Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff and Homeland Security Advisor, got a question about this from reporters in the White House driveway.
With regards to the refugees that are being brought back from South Africa.
Yeah, that's a really exciting news story, isn't it?
The rationale behind it when the refugees have not been taken back from other countries, why is the U.S. taking these from South Africa?
Well, because what's happening in South Africa fits the textbook definition of why the refugee program was created. This is persecution based on a protected characteristic, in this case, race. So this is race-based persecution. The refugee program is not intended as a solution for global poverty, and historically it has been used that way. Wherever there's global poverty or wherever there's dysfunctional governments, then the U.S. refugee program comes in, swoops people up, relocates them to America, and you have multi-generational problems. You even into the second and third generation, you have endemic poverty, you have crime issues, you have integration issues. The U.S. refugee program in America has been a catastrophic failure. I mean, if you look, for example, at the Twin Cities area, I mean, just in terms of markers of educational outcomes, in terms of public safety, in terms of welfare use, I mean, it's been a complete public policy failure. And so this is an example of the president returning the refugee program to what it was intended to be used as.
Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff and Homeland Security Advisor, with reporters outside the White House. Again, from the New York Times article, while the program remains suspended for refugees across the world, such as Congolese families in refugee camps and Rohingya seeking safety, white South Africans were processed much faster than is normal for these cases. South African government officials have vigorously disputed the claim by the U.S. that Afrikaners qualify for refugee status and conveyed those doubts in a diplomatic memo sent to the State Department this week. They said. That was from the New York Times. Washington Today continues in a moment.
Democracy. It isn't just an idea. It's a process shaped by leaders elected to the highest offices and entrusted to a select few with guarding its basic principles. It's where debates unfold, decisions are made, and the nation's course is charted. Democracy in real time. This is your government at work. This is C-SPAN, giving you your democracy unfiltered.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app and wherever you get your podcasts. In the Sistine Chapel, the Vatican, first papal mass today led by the new Pope, Leo XIV. Catholic Standard reports the day after his election, the new Pope returned to the chapel where his fellow 132 cardinals elected him Pope, the first U.S. citizen, first Peruvian citizen, first Augustinian friar, and likely the first Chicago White Sox fan to become Pope. To celebrate his first Mass with the College of Cardinals, wearing black shoes instead of the traditional red associated with the papacy. After two women read the Mass readings in English and Spanish, a possible nod to the new Pope's U.S. and Peruvian background, he greeted the Cardinals in English, marking his first public use of the language.
I'll begin with a word in English, and the rest is in Italian. But I want to repeat the words from the responsorial psalm. I will sing a new song to the Lord because he has done marvels. And indeed, not just with me, but with all of us, my brother cardinals, as we celebrate this morning, I invite you to recognize the marvels that the Lord has done, the blessings that the Lord continues to pour out upon all of us. Through the ministry of Peter, you have called me to carry that cross and to be blessed with that mission. And I know I can rely on each and every one of you to walk with me as we continue as a church, as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers, to announce the good news, to announce the gospel.
Pope Leo XIV at his first papal mass the day after his election. Back to the article from the Catholic Standard. where Christians are mocked, opposed, despised, or at best tolerated and pitied, is where the Catholic Church's missionary outreach is most desperately needed, Pope Leo XIV said in his first homily as leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. Today, there are many settings in which the Christian faith is considered absurd, meant for the weak and unintelligent, settings where other securities are preferred, like technology, money, success, power, or pleasure, the new Pope told cardinals during Mass in the Sistine Chapel. This is the world that has been entrusted to us, a world in which, as Pope Francis taught us so many times, we are called to bear witness to our joyful faith in Jesus, the Savior. Reporting from Catholic Standard. C-SPAN spoke this morning with Kurt Martens, Catholic University of America Ordinary Professor of Canon Law, about the public's reaction to the new Pope.
There was obviously a great reaction here in the United States. Everybody was happy. The first American-born pontiff, the first American-born Pope. But you saw also some criticism. Some people went after him for some of his retweets of his Twitter account. It hasn't been verified if that was his Twitter account, but still, where he retweeted some articles or statements emphasizing our openness to those in need, Matthew 25, that is, and thus criticizing some of the immigration policies. And that, of course, sparked some criticism from one side. There were also some people who criticized him for his handling of sexual abuse claims in the church. And so you have abuse victims who weren't too happy with that new election, with the new pontiff. And so you're going to have things like that. Every pontiff will spark some criticism, and it's going to be quite a challenge normally in the beginning to unify, to make sure that people get around and kind of follow the hierarchy. But ultimately, he is the Pope, he is our Pope, he is the Bishop of Rome. That's why he's the Pope. And he's on the top of the hierarchy. So we have to be joyful for this new pontiff. And there is actually lots to be joyful for. What's kind of interesting is that this was an intense 2 weeks, right? We lost our father as Catholics. The Bishop of Rome, Pope Francis, died. There was mourning. Then there was the intensity of the building up to the conclave. And yesterday was just a release of all those emotions, because we have again a leader, a Bishop of Rome, and we have again that father figure. So I think that's an occasion for a lot of joy. And for the rest, I think while people have all kinds of reactions, I think what is important is to embrace that there is a new Pope, and to listen to what he has to say. And I think that is also what he was saying in that when he was emphasizing the synodal process. What is a synodal process? We listen to one another. Sometimes these days, because of our fast communication methods, we already talk before the other is done talking, and we don't listen. And I think that's going to be an important thing to do in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead.
Kurt Martens, Catholic University of America, Ordinary Professor of Canon Law, on C-SPAN's Washington Journal program this morning. The U.S. House Chaplain Margaret Gruen-Kibben, a Presbyterian minister, prayed for the new Pope in her opening prayer to today's House session.
Heavenly Father, you have called each of us to live a holy life, worthy of the grace you have shown us. We give you thanks that you have raised up your servant, Pope Leo XIV, and bestowed on him the mantle of responsibility, not just to lead the Catholic Church, but to live as a holy exemplar of faith to all people in these challenging times. Grant him the wisdom necessary to discern the needs which he has a unique position and power to address. Loosen his lips that he would speak words of hope and kindness to a world beset by cruelty. Equip him with the keys to unlock the peace of your kingdom and reveal the limitless and unconditional love you have for all your people. Bless this your servant, and every one of us as we each seek to work out the calling to which you have called us. In the spirit of joy and excitement surrounding this one man of God, may we support, care, and encourage him and one another on this shared journey of faith. It is in your holy name that we pray. Amen.
The U.S. House Chaplain Margaret Gruen-Kibben opening today's House pro forma session. No legislative business scheduled. The Senate also not in session today. This Sunday is Mother's Day, and Spectrum News writes that President Donald Trump praised families of U.S. service members for making extraordinary sacrifices for the country during a White House East Room ceremony on Thursday. Meant to honor military moms ahead of Mother's Day. The president was joined by his wife, Melania Trump, for the event in what marked a thus far rare public appearance at the White House for the First Lady in her husband's second term. That was from the Spectrum News article. Here are the remarks from First Lady Melania Trump.
Motherhood. The life-changing event that makes women invincible and exposed at the same time. It's remarkable, really, that my son's life creates unimaginable, unpredictable concerns and thrills for me, even until this day. All caring mothers understand this rare feeling. Nothing against fathers, of course. But in my opinion, and I'm sure everyone in this room agrees, only a mother can grasp this particular point. Military mothers and America, together, have developed an extraordinary parallel journey. They are filled with stories of personal sacrifice, determination, loss, and healing. Certainly, only military mothers have experienced this level of grace and resilience of American life. And finally, aging. A sudden shift in family dynamics. An unexpected positioning change in life when caretakers become the caregivers. If this has happened within your family, you understand the precious nature of motherhood. Here now, in the White House, at this pivotal moment, I urge you to prioritize your well-being. Nurture yourself, for your strength is the bedrock of a brighter future for our children. By caring for ourselves, we empower the next generation to thrive. Together, let's build a legacy of resilience and hope. Your journey matters. Embrace it. And indeed, the sacred strength of women is a profound force. With unwavering love and nurturing wisdom, we have the ability to inspire, uplift, and shape the future hearts of our children. This power, rooted in compassion and resilience, is a beacon of hope that lights the way for generations to come. Let us unite to honor the beauty of motherhood, champion the grace of our journey, and inspire those who follow. A mother's love and wisdom empower our children to flourish, instilling in them the courage to reach their full potential. Motherhood. Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
First Lady Melania Trump Thursday at the White House at a celebration with mothers of military service members, President Donald Trump also attending. Also on Thursday on the House floor, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, Democrat from Texas, spoke about Mother's Day and public policy.
As we celebrate Mother's Day this weekend, I'm reminded of a visit that Donald Trump had with Howard Stern, and they were talking about marriage and having children. And Howard Stern said something like, why do you need the headache? And he said, oh, I won't do anything to take care of them. I'll supply funds and she'll take care of the kids. That's what he thinks of motherhood. That explains why he's offering a one-time $5,000 bonus check to encourage women to have babies. But what good is that when he's cutting maternal health care, trashing Medicaid, which pays for 4 in 10 births in our country, and letting child care costs force moms out of work. Let me be clear. Women want to be moms, but don't want to go broke having to raise this child, risk their life with a pregnancy, or lose their child to gun violence. If we're serious about celebrating Mother's Day, let's cut it with the bonus check and bring back the full tax credit and work to expand opportunities and protections for all mothers, not just this Sunday, but every day. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers. With that, I yield back.
Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, Democrat of Texas, on the House floor on Thursday. USA Today has an article. This year, Mother's Day falls on May 11th. In 1914, Congress passed a law designating the second Sunday in May as Mother's Day. Despite concerns about the economy, consumer spending for Mother's Day is projected to reach $34.1 billion this year. A recent survey from the National Retail Federation revealed that 84% of U.S. adults plan to celebrate the holiday with an expected average spending of $259 per person, which is about $5 more than their budget for 2024. That was from USA Today. And from CNN, former Supreme Court Justice David Souter, a Republican appointee who retired from the High Court in 2009 after voting consistently with its liberal wing, has died, the Supreme Court announced on Friday. He was 85 years old. Souter, a low-key New Englander who eschewed the national spotlight, was known by some as the stealth nominee when President George H.W. Bush nominated him in 1990 to replace the liberal lion William Brennan. Advisors assured the president that Souter would move the court to the right, a misreading that continues to reverberate today. The Supreme Court said that Souter died peacefully on Thursday at his home in New Hampshire, but did not disclose the cause. That was from CNN. In 2009, after Justice Souter retired, he visited Harvard University's alma mater to celebrate Constitution Day and spoke about why some critics of the Constitution are correct, and he said that's just fine.
The first level of criticism is the sort of the criticism that I think is summed up in one of the phrases from Robert Frost's last great poem, the part of the milkweed. I think I remember the phrase right. He said, "But waste was of the essence of the scheme." There is an essential, part of the essential nature of the Constitution is internal conflict. And it was intended to be a document of internal conflict. We want it both ways. We want both order and liberty. We want effective law enforcement and some degree of privacy, and so on. The same thing is true with respect to the efficiency of government. As Professor Tushnet pointed out, the very point of the structural element of the Constitution is to make some things difficult. They were made difficult in part to sort of eliminate too much efficiency of power at the highest level. And some things were made difficult for the very reason that we tend not to make very good decisions in times of great difficulty or peril or hysteria. And it's well for ourselves not to let ourselves go too far, too fast. That kind of waste, if you will, or that kind of inefficiency was the essence of the scheme. And to the extent that there is criticism of the Constitution, and I'm not suggesting that this was the essence of anyone's criticism today, but to the extent that there is criticism of the Constitution on grounds of inefficiency or waste, the answer to that is, yeah.
Former Supreme Court Justice David Souter at Harvard University in Massachusetts in 2009, right after he retired after 19 years. David Souter has died at the age of 85. All the current and retired Supreme Court justices putting out statements. From Chief Justice John Roberts, Justice David Souter served our court with great distinction for nearly 20 years. He brought uncommon wisdom and kindness to a lifetime of public service. From Amy Coney Barrett, though I did not serve with Justice David Souter, I remember his kindness to me as a young law clerk. Despite his position, his demeanor was unfailingly humble, and it was easy to see why his law clerks were utterly devoted to him. David Souter is the model of a judge who loved the law rather than the trappings of office. I am grateful for his service to the nation. And Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat from Connecticut, posting on X, in his deeply impactful insight and integrity, as well as dedication to the rule of law, former Supreme Court Justice David Souter was a quiet leader and mentor of unsung stature. Thanks for listening to Washington Today. Sign up for C-SPAN's evening newsletter word for word and get the stories making headlines in Washington emailed to you every day. Subscribe at cspan.org/connect. Have a good night and weekend. And to all the moms, happy Mother's Day.